Thank you for coming today, everyone. Today we have our topic-based webinar, and today's topic we're going to be talking about the Advanced Explorer and how that relates to just kind of using that particular feature and talk about how it relates to some of the CRM functions within the system. So what the Advanced Explorer is, most people are pretty familiar with, if you go and say explore companies. And you have your general screen here. It has all the companies listed, and you have all the information in the system. So, this will show you all that information, and you have a number of different filters and ways to search here. Well, that is kind of what's considered our basic Explorer. What we can do then on top of that is we have our Advanced Explorer. So if we go to Options, there is a Show Advanced Criteria Selection option here. And we can resize that. And what that does is that essentially gives us a completely custom query builder where we can say, give me all the companies where blah. And there's a lot of different criteria, lots of different options that you can use with this different advanced search. And the advanced search exists on pretty much all the different Explorers. So we're doing Explore Companies. If I do Explore Orders, I can say Options, Show Advanced. I can do Explore Estimates and do that, Explore Contacts. So the Advanced Explorer exists on almost all of the different Explorer screens. So what we're going to do now is just kind of walk through the process of what some of those options do and how they can be utilized with just the general use of the system and kind of mix and match and just some of the neat features that you can use with the Advanced Explorer. So once we turn on the Advanced Explorer, it just kind of picks up a default set of information based off of what you had when you first turned it on. So it's going to say all companies where the company is active, it's a prospect, and it's a client. So if we click on the green button here for Modify Criteria, and then we can take and resize this, that'll show us our query builder. So now I can essentially build my own value that says I want all companies where X is true, X is false. I can build that. So what I can do is if I clear this out, I can say all companies where, and now I can just go under company criteria, and I can use a lot of the different criteria. And I'm not going to go through all the options here because that would be a call in and of itself. But you are encouraged, once you kind of have a chance to get in here, you can play around with these different options because a lot of them, the worst that can happen is that you'll either get a screen that shows you no information or you'll get a screen that shows you way too much information. So it's really good to get in there and just kind of play around with some of these different options. But I will go through some of the more common ones that are related to CRM-based functions and just generally some of the more useful searches that some people will do. So I can start off by going here, and if I wanted to do the pretty simple one, all companies where it's a particular salesperson. I can go in here and say primary salesperson, and then I could double check that person's name. So I want all companies where the salesperson is account house. And you click OK, and that would pull up all the companies where the salesperson is the house account. Go back into here, we can clear that out. Some of the more useful ones here, if we go and under here and say dates, I want to see all the companies where the company creation date was in a certain time frame. So if I wanted to kind of run and see, give me all the companies that were created last month. If I wanted to kind of send a follow-up message to all the companies that we made last month, just to kind of check and see how they're doing, I can do that. If I want to see everyone that placed their first order this year, so if I wanted to kind of, at the end of the year, do a thank you for all the companies that made their first order with us this year, we could go and say, I want the first order created date and say this year. And then that would give me all the companies that made an order this year, where their first order was made. So that's a pretty useful one. Okay, just going back under the company criteria. You have under general criteria, there's a couple different things where you can just see, is it active? Is it a client? Is it a prospect? Does the company have orders? There's just some general questions there. Another one that a lot of customers don't use, but is really, really useful for these types of searches is we have the industry and the origin. So when you're setting up a company, in fact, we'll go ahead and go say industry, and I'll say automotive. Pulls up a single assigned company, because if we go into here, on each company record, you have the options here for specifying what the industry and origin on that company record is. And it's not really a required feature, so it doesn't have to be used, but if you do utilize it, you can run campaigns later and say, I want to see all companies that were created this year where the origin was a internet or the origin was a cold call. So you can kind of mix and match these criteria. So industry is automotive, and company criteria dates, first order created date was this year. So you can put multiple criteria there to kind of see how different functions work well together. So I can mix and match multiple different things to see, okay, all the orders that were created this year where the origin was from a particular type of campaign that we ran. So you can use those to kind of see how well certain marketing campaigns and certain functions, or if you have a certain industry that you kind of targeted, if you want to see how well that worked out, you can mix and match a lot of these different criteria together. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Okay. Just going through some of the other ones, we have, if you wanted to check on someone's payment terms, you can see all the customers that are certain payment terms, and then just some other general other searches. You know, we have the primary salesperson. You can also search on the secondary. You could search based off of the phone number, some other just real general criteria. So, you know, out of the major ones, we covered some of the more interesting ones, and then you just got your typical, you know, search on address, search on phone number, those types of criteria that you want to search on. But in general, that's kind of what the Advanced Explorer lets you do, is you can do a lot of things like this. So it gives you a lot more information than the simple Explorer that was company name, salesperson, and station, things like that. So it gives you a few extra functions. So we're actually going to come back to the Company Explorer in a few moments, just because it's going to utilize another feature that we're going to look at a little bit here with one of the other Explorers. So that is Explore Companies. So we'll go and say Explore Orders, Options, and Show Advanced. So that gets us, just like last time, gets us our Explorer thing with all the default options that we had initially checked. So all the WIP built and sale orders and everything that was closed this year and everything that was voided this year. So that's just kind of like the default that was there before I hit that option. So what I can do now is modify this, clear it out, and just like we did on the company side, we have the order criteria. And a lot of them do kind of mesh the same way. So I can go here and say, I want the salesperson for that particular order to be a particular order. I want the dates. I can go and say, I want all orders that were created this year. A lot of the same options kind of mesh and tie over the same way that you would have done them on the company side. However, we do have a few extra things that we can deal with now that we're working with orders. So one of the neat things here is, you know, sometimes you want to send a thank you for people that placed some of the bigger orders with you. So you can go and say, I want all the orders where the sale amount subtotal is greater than a certain value. So I want to see all the orders that are over $1,000. And that would give you all the orders that are over $1,000. You can also search on things like, you know, we have the status there. The PO numbers, if you wanted to search for a particular PO number, you can search for that. One of the neat things that we can do now that I want to show off here is, so we're doing Explore Orders. But let's say I'm kind of curious and I want to see all the orders where we sold a wide format print, all the orders where we did a vehicle wrap. If you wanted to see kind of all the specific orders that contained a certain product, I can actually go, while I'm under the all orders, I can go and say I want all orders, go to the products, and say I want all orders where the product was, we'll say I want to see everything that had a shipment line item. And that gives me 3 orders. If I go into that particular order, you'll see that that order contains a shipping line item. So if you have certain products that you wanted to kind of see how many orders contained that particular product, you can actually mix and match the criteria within the Advanced Explorer to combine those, to combine multiple different sets of criteria. So I could say I want all the orders where the order was created this year. So I can go and add that criteria, order place date was this year, with the option there for the product is shipping. So you can mix and match different criteria. I could even go and say, I want all orders where the order place date was this year, and company, so now I can jump up to the company side and say I want to see all of the orders that were placed this year for companies that have a industry of, I'm trying to think of which ones we have. Let's say accounting. So we have another test company. So if I pulled up another test company, its industry would be the accounting industry. So you can mix and match multiple different criteria for different sections to kind of build a list of information that you want to search for. And that's what makes the Advanced Explorers really, really useful, is you get to specify a lot more detail on what you're searching for. So that's kind of how it works on the Explorer orders. And the Explorer estimates is pretty much the exact same options. If we went into Explorer estimates, it would pretty much have a lot of the same criteria: dates, salesperson, PO numbers, everything that exists on the order side would pretty much exist with the order side as well. So with the Advanced Explorer, there's 2 more interesting things that people like to do with them. So we're going to go and do, let's close some of these out. We'll do Explore Contacts. And one of the more common things that come up with CRM related stuff with the Advanced Explorer is people that like to do email blasts or email chains and just general, be able to use the system a little bit better for emailing things out. So we could actually utilize 2 functions to make that work. What I can do is go under the Explore Contacts, open up our Advanced Explorer, and modify criteria. So I'm going to do 2 different things here. I want to say I want all contacts where the contact is active. We'll do that. I want it where, if we go under contact criteria, we'll say general criteria, and I can say that the contact has an email address set. And then I only want to do the primary contact. So, just give me a listing of every primary contact in the system that has an email address set. So we click OK. And I can probably add something. Walk-in is one contact that kind of likes to insert itself everywhere. But for the most part, that'll give us everyone that has an email address that is the primary contact for their respective company. So what I can do with this is now, if I right-click anywhere in the middle section here, I can say right-click and do, we'll say column chooser first. So what I can do with that is, if there's a column here, so I got first name, last name, company, primary number, email, I can add, if I wanted to add some additional information, I can look at my list of items here, so I could add in, maybe I want to put the contact's position there. So I can click and drag that information on there to show the contact's position. If I want to put on there what the state for that particular person is, I can add the state on there. So I can add additional columns, and then also I can remove columns. So if I don't want the company number, I can drag that down, get rid of that. So once I have my screen set up the way that I want, I can go here and say right-click, export grid, and then the most common one is I can export out to Excel. There's a couple other functions there as well. And then what I can do is, now that I have all those companies that have an email address set, I could go into here, go down, copy and paste that into whatever, if you have a separate program that you use for email blasts, you can go and copy all those emails into that particular program, and that's how you can set up an email blast for all the contacts in your system that have an email address set that are your primary contacts. So that's one of them, probably, I would say, that is the most commonly used CRM function using the Advanced Explorer, is to generate an email list of all of your contacts that have an email out of the system. That's definitely the #1 most common function used for the Advanced Explorer. The last thing I want to showcase that we can do with the Advanced Explorer is we're going to go back to the Explore Companies list. So we'll say Options, Show Advanced, Modify Criteria, and again, we're going to start with a blank slate. So we kind of mentioned it a little bit before, where you can mix and match criteria under different sections. So I want all companies where, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go under the order criteria. And this isn't a well-known option that you can do with the Advanced Explorer, but it is actually pretty cool on what this will do. So if I'm under the Explore Companies, I can actually do a thing where if I go under the sale amounts, and I'll just use the subtotal, so I can say I want all companies where the order subtotal, and then under here there's a lot of different options. What I can actually do is I want the order subtotal total is, I usually will say greater than 0. There's a couple different ways of doing it. You could put in a flat number value, you can put in a cent. Essentially, I want all the companies where their order subtotal total is greater than a certain number. What that will do is it will actually go through and add in all the companies that have essentially placed orders in your system and give you the subtotal for that particular company, in which case then I could, if you click on the column, you can sort on that, and that will essentially give you a column there that will show you how much dollar value has each of these companies placed in the system. And then you could do like a viewing top 10, or obviously you probably would have more than 3 companies in your system. So you could view the top 10 out of all those companies, and that would be a way to kind of get you a nice easy list generated within the system, so it doesn't require any reports or anything special. That will give you a list of, here's all of our biggest selling companies. And you can mix and match criteria on top of that. So maybe I want to see only the orders for this year. So within that same section, I can also go and say the order place was this year. And this test system is new from this year, so that may not have been the best example, but it kind of showcases what you can do. Let's do this. I'm actually going to go and say where order dates, place date is, let's try this month and see if that makes a difference. And cleans out the list a little bit, because now we're only looking at the totals for this month rather than the totals for all time. So you can mix and match multiple criteria to kind of generate a nice list of, all the companies that essentially would give me their sales totals for this year is kind of what we're looking at here. So that's what the Advanced Explorer lets you do. And like I said, there's just so many different options that you can mix and match. And there's just lots of different types of searches. So explore companies, explore orders, explore estimates. You can do explore line items and do that. There's purchase order explorers. So just about every explorer in the system has its own set of criteria if you wanted to search on it. So you could do explore purchase orders, and then from there you could look at explore purchase orders based off of the criteria that are under there. So at this point, it's really kind of like I'm showing you the tools that you can use. And a lot of it is just to get in there and start building a query. Because like I said, the worst that will happen would be like you saw initially, where I either get everything, or if I had went and did something crazy like, let's see, I want all orders where place date was after today, basically, which can't happen. I guess I placed that one today, so that would explain why. So overall, the worst that can happen is your query is not quite set up correctly, so it's either going to return you what you didn't expect, or it's going to return you way too much or not enough, in which case then you just go back into your criteria builder, clear it out, and start over. So it is one of the few things that it is not, you're not going to break things just by playing around with the Explorer, because you're just looking up information. You're not changing anything. So you can pull up that Advanced Explorer and just look through the different options and see what types of queries that you can build. And as far as that goes, that's pretty much the main different things that you can do with the Advanced Explorer and use that function within the system. Like I said, it can be used for exploring orders, it can be used for the CRM thing. We looked at a lot of those different options for company creation based off their industries and things like that. So it's just a really, really powerful tool to let you look at the information that's already in the system in a little bit more refined way. So you can specify a lot more detailed searches rather than just all the companies that start with the letter G that have X salesperson and having to stop there because there's no other options that you can use with the regular Explorers. So with that, does anyone have any questions related to today's topic? So does anyone have any questions about just the Advanced Explorer for today? Okay, so we got a question. So can you go ahead and type what the question is there, please? Okay, so the question is, do people use Sirius in place of Constant Contact? I would say probably the vast majority of people that I've worked with, they use it in conjunction with Constant Contact. So the system does have the functionality where if I pulled up that list of contacts again, and this does remind me of one thing I did forget to mention actually, so I kind of thank you for that. So I will mention that during this portion. So if I do my query, oops. If I'm happy with the query that I create, I can go here and say save and say contacts with email, and that way I can pull up that query again without having to rebuild it from scratch. So so that way, you know, if I'm pretty happy and I see myself running this again in the future, I can go through and set that up. Okay, so anyways, back to this option. So, I mean, you have the option where if I pull this up, I can kind of go and say, check all. I'm going to uncheck the one that I don't want. And then I can go over here and say like a run macro action and say run email macro. So just like we, you know, last time I went and exported the list and copied the email, you can technically use the run email macro off of your query and write up an email here. So you can use the system for emailing out. Obviously, you know, the emails are still limited to how the system creates email, so you can't really do like images in your signature and all the other restrictions that you would normally have when sending out an email. But yeah, I think I was kind of answering the question without without seeing it first. But yeah, you know, so your emails are still the emails that you do in the system are still as if you do any other regular types of emails. There's no images, there's no fancy special email function. It's still just your regular email thing. So, you know, you can do an attachment, you can do your to field with a message and merge fields, but there's no images and things like that. So it's still just a regular email out of the system. So that's why I'm saying most people do still use Constant Contact in addition to the system, because they can generate the emails, they can generate the email list out of our system and then use the other system to actually send out the emails, just because their programs are a little bit more dedicated and have a little bit prettier emails than ours do. Does that help answer the question there? Okay, awesome. All right, I might need a clarification on this question. It's saying, can we go over how to set up and save multiple queries? Was that kind of what we were talking about here, where I mentioned where you can set up the query and then save it? Did I cover that with that particular answer? Is that what you were asking about there? Okay, awesome. Yeah, I did forget to mention that, so yeah, so that did cover. So yeah, any queries that you do, you can save, and whenever you go to your Advanced Explorer, you'll be able to pull up those queries, so you can rerun any query that you're happy with. Okay, so we got someone asking, can you export the results to an Excel sheet? And the answer there is yes, and that's pretty much any of the explorers, so explore companies, explore contacts, explore orders, any of those screens that you want. Once you have the information, you can right-click and then you can do a right-click column chooser if you wanted to change the column. So if you wanted to add some additional information before you export it out, you can add that information. Once you've added the information through the column chooser, then you just do right-click and then export grid, and then you can export the grid as an Excel. And then that will just take that information and let you send it out to an Excel screen. You're welcome. I guess going back to this one, a thank you email after the first order, that might be more dedicated to, we've done a couple calls that talk about macros. That might be, if you wanted to send an email directly after after the company's first order, that might be more of a macro type thing. Whereas this one would be good for kind of running it at the end of the week, at the end of the month, kind of at the end of a certain time frame, and kind of give you everything. So it's it's more just for returning mass bits of information. So you can use it for an email chain after the first order, but it would be run whenever you run that particular query. I don't know if that was just a reposting of another question that you had, just because it looked real similar. So I was going to cover it anyways, just to be safe. Okay, sorry. Just wanted to go over it. All right. Can this be used to manage a sales pipeline? I guess I might need a little bit more clarification on what you're looking for, in the sense that, like, you can use it to see, you know, all the orders that are in sale. You can use it to see everything that's kind of pending and coming down the line, and that based off of how you set up your query, you can use it to keep an eye on, you know, the different orders in the system and the different companies that have a lot of orders. You can set up queries to handle that. Sorry, I know that's a little bit vague, but it's kind of more like I need an example to kind of know what type of information to try to pull up for you. But like, you know, like we saw, we can do all the orders. We can do companies that have, you know, we could do a query that says, you know, give us all the companies that have a lot of orders and WIP. So that way you can kind of see, you know, who's got a lot in production. You can make a query like that. So I could do, in fact, we can set that up real quick. So if I did explore companies and do our options show advanced, modify criteria. So we're going to say I want all companies where all the following are true. And I want to say I want all the companies where they have an order that is in a status of WIP and the sale amounts, and then do the sales subtotal is, so the sales subtotal total is greater than 0. So that's going to give me a value of, okay, I saw the addendum, and I'll get back to that in a second. But yeah, this would give me, you know, all the companies that have this much amount in WIP. Well, I could take that same concept, go back into my Advanced Explorer, and say, well, I guess prospecting management. I mean, you could do that and see, I want all companies where, let's see what we could do there. Well, I guess, you know, what I can do here is I want all companies where the company, general criteria, the company is a prospect, And out of that, I want to see, based off of the companies that are prospects, I want to see estimates that are pending. So we'll go and say status here. I want all pending estimates, and I want all the amounts, so the sales estimates total is greater than $0. So that would give me all the prospects that basically, so essentially all the companies that don't have an order yet, all the prospects that have a pending estimate in the system, and I might have to look into that later and see what's going on with that, because it didn't like that. Okay, so there might be some stuff for us to play around with, but I mean, in the sense that we can say, I'll just nix this portion out because I think that's probably what, nope, okay. I broke it somewhere. But yes, we can get, you should be able to explore companies that are prospects and be able to keep an eye on those companies that are prospects within the system, just like with all the other stuff that we looked at. So you can use it on a prospecting side to track all the companies that are considered prospects, because those are companies that haven't created any orders with you in the system. So that is one way that you can check that out. All right, thank you. Do we have any other questions that anyone wants to go over about the Advanced Explorers? That, I will try to answer that if we have some more time afterwards, but that is not really a Advanced Explorer question at the moment. Yeah, it's related, but it gets into other functions that would be its own topic. So, okay. All right. Does anyone else have any other Advanced Explorer questions for us today? All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and end the questioning for now. Thank you guys all for coming. We had some, hope this was something for everyone. We try to do these topics about once a month or so. We just pick a topic and just try to go over some of the more general things. So thank you guys all for showing up. That's it for the Advanced Explorer. So we're going to go ahead and end the call here for the recording.